Joining us now is epidemiologist Dr. Raywat Deonandan to help us understand and break down the COVID headlines of the week. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Deo.
My pleasure.
So let's start with the numbers in Ontario. Every day, a step up in the case counts this week. Do you think we're at a stage right now where we can safely reopen some parts of the province?
Right now, no, but in a couple of weeks, yes. Which parts? Well, outdoor dining has always been safe, patios and things like that. We can start looking into making recreational centers safer. Definitely, though, we should not be too carried away with the daily changes in cases. This is a jagged process. It's just that the overall trend is coming down. We're on track to be done this first wave mostly by the end of June.
So to some, it might appear that Ontario is quite a bit behind other parts of North America when it comes to reopening. Do you think that's a fair assessment, and maybe it's a good thing?
Well, it's difficult to compare us to the United States. It was a different dynamic entirely, a different timing of the arrival of variants, definitely different arrival times and quantities of vaccines, and different thresholds of tolerance when it comes to numbers of new cases. I don't think it's fair comparison at all. I think we're actually doing relatively well considering, and the fact that we have a solid plan for reopening should fill us with some confidence. So I like the fact that maybe we're a little more cautious these days. So that's going to pay dividends down the road.
Indeed. So Ontarians now have the option of mixing and matching vaccine doses. What advice can you provide to our viewers on whether or not that's something they should consider? I guess, in other words, what should we be basing that decision to mix and match on?
Yeah, it should be based on your tolerance of risk. What kind of risk? Well, right now the data suggests that if you get a AstraZeneca as your first shot and Pfizer as your second shot, you have a higher chance of a reactogenicity. What does that mean? Probably some more side effects like fever and fatigue and some pain on the site lasting a couple of days. For some people, that's sufficient to dissuade them from mixing and matching. On the other hand, you have a much lesser risk, possibly even zero risk, of the dreaded clotting events that scared a lot of people away from AstraZeneca in the first place. So if that's what you're most afraid of, then choose to mix and match. Personally, I don't see any downside with mixing and matching. These side effects are minimal in my mind, but to some people they're substantial. So it's a personal risk calculation.
And if I might, I just wanted to talk a bit about the timeline, because there's been a bit of flip-flopping on that too. At one point we were hearing it was better to wait, up to 3 months, and now we're down to, a matter of weeks. Can you talk to people who might be frustrated hearing different changing guidelines? It seems like every other day.
That's right. So the sweet spot, according to some data, appears to be about 12 weeks for the mRNA vaccines and for the AstraZeneca vaccine for some, according to some data. But that the advantage you get in efficacy by waiting to 12 weeks probably is outweighed by the advantage in getting 2 shots into you quickly because of this Delta variant that's circulating. We know that the Delta variant is susceptible to 2 doses. 2 doses of Pfizer, for example, gives you about 88% protection against this variant. 1 dose gives you 33%. So it makes sense to get a second dose into you quicker. So the way I do the math, right now, it makes more sense to accelerate getting a second dose than it is to wait for the magical 12-week spot. That's how it works.
Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk about the Delta variant. It seems like there's a whole bunch of concern around it. Again, it was first detected in India. We know it's more transmissible, but what else have we learned, and why now? Because I think we heard about this back in February.
Yeah, well, more data comes in, right? It takes time to collect the data and compare to different populations, and it's running rampant through the UK, parts of the UK, and threatening their reopening plans. So now that we have more data, it seems that it's about 50% more transmissible than B.1.1.7, the so-called UK variant, and 2.7 times more likely to put you in the hospital. It's a scary beast. Right? But the good news is that it responds to our vaccines a little less potently than, say, COVID Classic, as I call it, but definitely sufficiently that all we have to do is get our 2 doses into enough people. So let's not be too scared about this. We know exactly what we need to do. We just have to do it.
Okay. Again, always appreciate your insight and your perspective. That is Dr. Raywat Deonandan, an epidemiologist, joining us from Ottawa. Thanks again.